this computer.
Yeah, see if you can record. Just do like 30 seconds, and just make sure it like goes to whatever file or whatever, just so we don't do it for 25 minutes and then next thing you know we got to do it again.
All right, I just started recording, so we can just keep talking and let it go from here.
All right, we got Josh and James on the pod today. We got finals going on. I just came home. I just drove back from Maine today. Josh, you're still up there, right?
Yep, still up here. I'll leave Monday. I've got one in-class final Sunday morning, and then following that, I'll be on a flight home to Colorado.
Yeah, it's been quite the semester, huh? We've been we've both been up in Maine, which has been nice. We've been able to see each other living in different houses and whatnot, which has been fun. But it's been a pretty memorable and wild semester, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing has just been the general uncertainty. Like we've really had no idea. I guess coming up here, none of us really had any idea what the semester was going to look like. I didn't have any idea where I was going to live. I was planning on living on campus. Obviously, that became not an option for.
That wasn't possible, yeah.
No, yeah, that wasn't an option for anyone unless you're a first year.
Yeah.
So I had to scramble. Got a group of guys together, also on the baseball team. Lived in Harpswell. So I mean, it worked out, all things considered. We got a great place on the water. Easy to see you guys. Easy for you to come to us.
Nice place to come over on Saturdays, right on the water, especially before it got too cold.
Oh man, we had some nice porch days for sure.
Except for that one day when you and Matt and Connor tried to take out the canoe, and then it ended up getting tipped over.
That seemed like such a great idea at the time. We didn't even get into the water.
I know. I remember looking out over the porch, and I was like, "What's happening?" We were just heckling you guys from the porch. Or definitely not offering any help, but that was definitely one of the more memorable parts of this semester for me.
We were beyond saving. It was cold. We were soaked. We hadn't even gotten the canoe out into the open water. We were in about 2 inches of water when we tipped over.
Yeah. So bringing it back to kind of the beginning of when all of this uncertainty happened, I remember it was right around the time before spring break for us. So that was, what was that? Late February, going into early March. And so we were excited. We were going to have a season. Things were looking good. We had a really good off season after not a great year the year before. So we were really excited about, being able to get out on the field and compete against other teams. And kind of like, what moment for you was the realization that, this is actually might be different, and coronavirus is actually a serious thing that might affect our season, and as it so happened, affect the entire world too.
Yeah, I think it was after a practice. This is probably, as we normally end practice around 11:30 p.m.
It's crazy how late our practices go, but
it's not. Tell people we start practice at 9, and people are.
That's another topic of conversation for another podcast. Yeah.
The fact that we practice at 9 p.m. But so yeah, Coach had us all brought up in the corner of Farley Fieldhouse, and basically told us, I think it was Wesleyan, canceled their trip. And he said, our trip is in question. Now, he said, for the time being, in typical Coach Conley fashion, he was green light all the way.
Yeah.
He said, we're going to go, but just know that there is whisperings of the possibility that this might get canceled. And I think at that point, none of us really realized. We're like, we're going to Florida. It's not going to matter. Wesleyan was going to Arizona. So we kind of just figured, they're going to a different spot. They're a different school. Our decision-making is completely independent. I think none of us had a great grasp on how real the threat of COVID was.
No, I had no clue. I thought we were going to be, all systems go. And then so our Florida trip gets canceled, and our coach, pulls some strings, and he says, we're still going to be having some sort of a, spring training, playing teams out of conference, I think was the initial plan. So we booked like a bus trip to different schools in Massachusetts. We were able to get a couple games in Northborough, which we've probably played, 20% of our entire college career or something has been at that Northborough complex where we played a lot, which was great. But then I remember the next thing, I think we played, it was St. Joe's, I think. No, St. Mike's. We played St. Mike's at Northborough, and then coach kind of huddled us up, and there was kind of another moment of realization that, like, it's not looking great that we're going to have a season. And then I remember we go to Amherst, we play Amherst, and then I remember finding out in that Chipotle after the game. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think someone had a friend on Amherst, and their
Matt.
coach broke the news. Yeah, it was Matt. And their coach broke the news to them and said, like, it was their first game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was our, like, 5th game. So we had a couple more games under our belt, but this was their first game. And then right after the game, their coach huddles them up and says, like, season's canceled. The administration has canceled sports, and we're sending everyone home. And that was kind of the moment for me, and I think for all of us in that Chipotle, where we all just kind of started connecting the dots and saying, like, oh boy, this is really, really not looking good, huh?
But even then, I remember we had more hope than was probably warranted at the time. I think we were all going, wow,
we're too optimistic about everything. Huh?
We're way too optimistic. Looking back,
not anymore.
Maybe this has changed just for the worse.
Yeah.
But, I remember we were like, no, there's no way we'll play. We'll just play in state. Even if the school sends us home, they'll still let us play.
Yeah.
We were going through all the scenarios in our head, none of which, in hindsight, were very realistic. But I think we had all the.
I was thinking too, like, there was a possibility that, like, they'll just send us home for 2 weeks. Like, not the whole semester will be online, but maybe this will be just like a stopgap thing. And then there's kind of, we all quickly started to realize, or maybe slowly started to realize that, no, we're all going home and, like, the season's not going to happen, which I think the official, I don't remember the official word or, like, the official season being canceled. Do you remember that? Was it Clayton's email?
I don't.
The dreaded, the infamous Clayton email.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't quite remember the official.
It's all kind of a blur, like that whole 2-week period before going home. I remember that.
I remember, so I'll tell you what I do remember is when it all became real was when we were sitting in the locker room. It was that Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
And we were all told, oh no, because we didn't know, actually. I think we didn't know. We were told to meet in the locker room Wednesday morning. And we had just gotten back, I think, Monday or Tuesday. And we were kind of in a state of limbo. We had all the optimistic scenarios in our head. But I think it was dawning on us that, things were going south. And I remember coach walked in, a lot of tears were shed by a lot of parties. The seniors spoke.
Me included.
Yeah, I'm not going to exclude myself from that group. I think everybody in that room, anybody in that room with a heartbeat was crying. That was a tough moment for sure. And
I'm trying to remember
if we wanted to play another against Colby.
Yeah, that's right. We had that final game.
Yep.
It was a weird feeling playing that final game because, like, we knew the season was canceled. Colby knew the season was canceled, but it's like, let's try and get one more game in. Which it was a weird feeling, honestly, for me, like, going to that game and playing in that game. It was like almost like a scrimmage, because it was like, which it was technically a real game, but it just didn't feel like it was. It felt almost like here, we'll give you this one game, which in hindsight, I'm glad we were able to play. It was, looking back now, it's going to be our last college baseball game, but it was just a weird feeling in that game. So it was, I don't know. It was weird. I don't know if you had those same feelings too.
No, I agree. I think it's in years past, it's been easy to get pumped up for the Colby series, in-state rival. That's a must win. Obviously in the NESCAC, the way the conference was set up, every series was a must win, but
is it a must win or a can't lose?
I'm not sure. At this point, I'm not sure. But, it's hard to get pumped for a game that it is your last, and you're aware of the fact that it's your last. So there's that sadness, and then there's that kind of excitement of getting to play Colby.
I remember the bus ride too. I think you were in this conversation. I was talking with a couple of people. I know me and Austin were talking because we had listened to that the Michael Osterholm Joe Rogan podcast where it was the early stages of COVID-19, and he was kind of talking about, and like it ended up being a very prophetic podcast because he kind of laid out exactly how things were going to happen. And I remember all of us just kind of trying to wrap our head around, what the next 2 weeks, let alone, 2 months to 9 months was going to look like. So it was really different feeling, not really getting prepared for a game as much as, getting prepared for how the rest of the semester is going to look. And then, I mean, we really had no feelings that this was going to be the end of, our baseball season. We thought for sure we would have a normal fall semester, or at least I did. And I remember during those conversations, it seemed like that's what it was going to be like.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at every step of the way, at least for me, at every step of the way, I've underestimated how far it's going to go.
Yeah.
And, even in the late summer, I was like, before we heard, I don't know, I forget when we heard about the fall semester, but I was like, oh no, they're going to send us back. Things might be a little restricted, but we'll go back. I'm not worried. And I remember getting that email and being, pretty devastated about it. I was not happy. But I think this has, like we were saying, I think I've increasingly become pessimistic, and now I'm plotting out the worst case scenario every time, and I'll be surprised by better news, but I'm ready for the worst news, which, I don't know what that says about me and the way I'm going to live my life for the next few years, but that's how this has changed me, I guess.
Yeah. So then kind of fast forwarding so now we're all off campus. We're all back home, wherever we are. You actually stayed in Maine for a little bit, I believe, and you were staying with some of the seniors who were on campus. But I remember it was kind of weird or difficult for us to kind of keep that team chemistry together when we're not all together. I remember some things that we did trying to stay together. We had like some Zoom, but not parties or whatever, but Zoom meetings with guys on the team. At least the guys in our grade, for, whether someone had a birthday or whatever it was. So that was really the only way we were able to kind of stay together, other than, texting and, social media and other ways like that. But it was weird kind of and difficult to stay together as a team, or not even a whole team, but just like our grade. And specifically, it was hard maintaining those relationships when you are however many miles away from everybody.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think for us particularly, it's a big difference in the way we conducted our lives remotely, because for those that don't know, I think it applies to all sports teams at Bowdoin, but you really do almost everything together. You spend almost every waking minute together.
Yeah.
And in some cases, if you're living with guys on the team, every sleeping minute too. Like it's, you share a lot of the classes. A lot of guys are gov majors. A lot of guys are econ majors. So you got the same classes. You go to lunch, generally at the same time. We always ate 5 o'clock dinner.
5 o'clock dinner. I miss those 5 o'clock dinners now, huh? Looking back. What I would
give for a 5 o'clock dinner at Thorne right now.
Even if they got herb roasted chicken on the menu, I'd still eat that.
I would eat herb roasted chicken with a smile on a dark, cold Sunday evening. Please, I would do it with a smile. Yeah, it is funny. Even the worst parts, in what we thought were the worst parts, we'd kill to go back for those now.
I know. Looking back on it now, that's kind of the things I miss the most, are the difficult nights in HL with studying for a test with someone, or writing a paper, or even when you don't have too much going on, just being in the library, because we kind of had our corner of the library that we would generally always sit together at, and those really are the little things that you end up missing the most.
Well, and we were saying, so the other night Austin and I were walking around campus, just kind of reminiscing, and we got a little sad, for sure. But we were talking. We were doing the walk from basically through that Longfellow playground on that path.
Yeah.
And I said, pretty controversially, but I stand by my take. I said I would do speed training every single day, 7 days a week, to be back on campus under normal life.
Speed training is the one thing that I guess I do miss it still. It was a big camaraderie moment and whatnot, but I definitely haven't been getting my cardio exercise in the last however many months as much as I probably should have been.
I mean, honestly, I think if you told the spring athletes it was time to play a season, you'd find some of the most out of shape, not unprepared group of Division III athletes you've ever found.
I don't know how competitive we would be. We spent the most active thing we were doing this fall together was probably golfing. That we would go golfing either once or twice a weekend over at the not so nice Bath Country Club, but it was perfect for us. What it was like, $10 after 4 o'clock, or I don't know. It
Yeah,
was like a very
twilight hours
cheap.
were cheap.
Yeah, the Twilight. Yeah, we definitely got our money's worth with the Twilight hours at Bath.
Well,
But yeah.
not to mention the irreparable damage we've done to our swings playing that much golf.
We're not great golfers, but we like getting out there, which is fun.
No, it's more about being out there than it is about the actual game, at least for me.
I remember probably the biggest team building moment or team building activity that we were able to do happened over the summer. So in the wake of the George Floyd murder and the protests that occurred after, we kind of saw so many different, people speaking up in so many, whether it be professional athletes or really anyone that we follow on Twitter or Instagram or watching TV. You kind of see everyone having this same message of being upset about what was happening. And I think us on the team were also upset, and we knew we had this platform as being on the baseball team. And obviously Division III Bowdoin College, it's not as big a platform as, say, LeBron James and the LA Lakers or players in the NBA, but it was a platform. And we did, I remember we had a meeting and we were texting and we said, like, hey, like, let's do something. And we saw that Bowdoin College had the matching program where up to a certain amount, I think it was $250 each individual, if you donated to one of a laundry list of charities that Bowdoin would match that donation. So then we wanted to do something. Do you remember kind of the inception of that idea and kind of how we came up with what we ended up doing?
Yeah, so I think it really started with so we have unfortunately very few people of color on the team, but one of our, I guess, former classmates, he took the year off, but Owen reached out to me for the login info for the Bowdoin Baseball Instagram. And he said he wanted to post a statement regarding the team's stance on Black Lives Matter. And
because we saw other teams doing that, other Bowdoin teams. So kind of like we saw what other teams on Bowdoin were doing, and that other Division III athletes kind of had these same feelings as us. And then so we had the statement, and then what happened after that?
Yeah, so I think the statement went out, and it was a good statement. It was well written, and I think it reflected, obviously how the guys feel. And I was talking to Owen again, and I said, hey, it was a group conversation with Owen and CJ because they both had written the statement, and I said, hey guys, that looks great, nice job, but let's do something. Like, what can we actually do? Because at the end of the day, words are nice and they reflect our views, but at least in my opinion, a post on our Instagram account, which has, maybe 700 followers, we're not making any change. We're expressing our views, which are, they're going to go down on the correct side of history there, but they're really pretty meaningless unless we actually do something and make some actionable difference. And so I think that from there, we started talking fundraising, and we said, well, we could do a fundraiser. And I said, well, let's do something where we have to also, like, the team is also going to pull their end. We're going to ask for money, but the people who donate are going to get something in return. They're going to get, we're going to run or do something. And that's where it was kind of born, where we would reach out to family, friends, alumni, classmates, and for every $250, we decided on that amount, $250 donated, we would run a mile. And we thought we thought maybe,
I remember this, yeah,
that was going to be a good number. We'd have an appropriate number of miles to run, and it would be okay. Well, it kind of caught like wildfire, and we ended up raising over $6,000, which equates to, I forget the exact numbers, but it equated to,
it was like 20 something miles we ended up having to run each, which I remember seeing the day that we opened it up for donations. I remember they kept coming in because you had access to the Venmo where we were sending in, and you kept sending us the updated tallies. And I remember, after 2 hours we had however much money, which was more than we were expecting. I remember being in my living room. I was talking to my sisters, and I was like, oh geez, like, I got to start stretching. I I got to start getting ready to run. I started drinking water and getting ready for my run the next day, which was fun. I mean, it was fun being able to really like do something during quarantine. I think this was June or June. Yeah, I think it was June. So everyone was getting, or at least me, I was starting to get stir crazy in my house. So I was, excited to be part of something in this endeavor that we had, which was fun for me, and obviously for a great cause too, which I think everyone was really happy to get on board for our team, definitely.
Yeah, and with the donation match, I think we came out to around 12K. So there was kind of something for us to A, do, B, to have some sort of activity. I think we're all feeling a little bit directionless. At least I was. It's good to have kind of something to do, a goal to strive for. I wasn't playing summer baseball. I know a couple of the guys were, but it was nice to be able to have an excuse to get outside and, seeing we had an app that would share each other's runs. And so seeing like, I would get the notification that you had just done a 7-mile absolute bagger. And I'd be like, all right, I guess it's time for me to get out there. And so, no, I think it was good. And the app kind of helped us, even if we didn't text about it in that moment, getting the notification, oh, James McCarthy just ran 9 miles. All right. Looks like it's time to race him up again.
Yeah. Well, I think what you were saying a couple minutes ago about how, like just writing the words wasn't necessarily enough when we wanted to do something. I think that's something I kind of was able to see, not just on our team, but kind of, our generation and, kind of people more broadly, at least, because I saw, like, obviously there was the outpouring of support on social media, but this kind of, I think it kind of signified a change where people didn't want to just post the Instagram, but they wanted to try and find what to do. And a lot of people were similarly lost with that direction, but I think a lot of people were able to find the specific direction that worked for them. And I think this kind of, signified that change, whereas, let's not just post something on Instagram, but let's actually try and make some tangible change, in my specific community, in my local community, make that little change that, each person or each group doing that amounts to, an actual big difference.
Yeah. And I think I would like to think at least that we were the kind of pathway for a lot of people to donate that wouldn't have necessarily donated. A lot of alumni donated pretty significant. They donated the full 250. We had a couple alums give us the full amount just because they wanted to see us run. And, Venmo captions were funny. They would call a specific guy out. So I think they had a lot of fun with it, and they felt like, it was a good cause. The opportunity was pretty much given to them, and a lot of them played with us and interacted with us for a couple of years. And so it was a fun thing for them to kind of have an excuse to force us to run and, kind of get to inflict a little bit of seniority again, but, and also kind of donate to a cause, which I think everybody kind of wanted to, but maybe not necessarily knew exactly how to go about it.
And then, so I remember as the summer kind of came to a close, and then we're starting to plan on coming back to campus, at least me, you were planning on living on campus in the fall, so you didn't have an off-campus house to live in initially. Me, I was planning on living off campus, and I had 6 other roommates, so I kind of knew what I was doing, and that was kind of my plan for the fall and where I ended up living. But talk a little more about how you had to figure out your living situation in the early weeks of September, and then kind of how the rest of the semester went for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, I was planning on living on campus. Obviously, those plans went out the window. So I had to quickly scramble. And I'll tell you, every single posting for a rental in Brunswick, and there aren't that many of them, every single one, they had a price per month. Every single one. You'd call them up and they'd say, well, that's not the price anymore.
It just started skyrocketing
by a pretty significant amount.
Yeah.
And I think it was because, a lot of people like us or like me, who were going to live on campus, shifted their plan. Now they were going to live off campus. All of a sudden, the rental market in Brunswick seeing demand like they've never seen before. And so obviously prices rose, and, it was a challenge to find a place, talk to probably almost every landlord in Brunswick, many of them were not willing to rent to college students, but I'm sure they
Yeah.
came around after they realized. But anyway, we found a nice place in Harpswell, like we talked about earlier. It's right on the water. It's been a good setup for us. We do lose power quite a bit. Anytime a storm rolls through, we tend to lose power. But no, it's been great. Close to you guys, and when everything first started, I knew that I wanted to be there for the first couple of weeks. Those weeks are always fun. At least when we're on campus, those first couple of weeks are some of the best of the year.
Yeah, but your lease didn't start until, what was it, like late September, early October or something?
We had mid-September as our start date, and we started school, I think, on the 1st. So I knew I wanted to be up. I was kind of sick of being at home. Been home for 3 months at that point. It's like, I want to get out there, and so I reached out to you guys. Thankfully, you sheltered the needy for a little bit there, and I crashed on mattresses on Beckett's floor, and continue to crash on your guys' couch from time to time.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a good setup, and I think things kind of worked out the best they possibly could have, given everything that's transpired.
Well, it was weird. So then coming back onto campus, so in the fall, at least for me, I was, and I think all of us, we were 100% planning on having a season in the spring. And I remember having meetings with our coach. So we were talking about a lot of different things. One was, how do we continue to, push our message of social justice on our team, and kind of what sorts of tangible things can we continue to do? So that was one part of the conversation. But another large part of the conversation was, how do we prepare for a season when we don't have access to, or we ended up getting access to the field, but we don't have access to the gym on campus. We didn't have access to the rest of our teammates to really, have the sorts of practices and scrimmages that you really need to prepare for the season. But at least at that point, we were really preparing to have a season. And then I don't remember exactly when, but there was a moment where we kind of had our second realization that, oh, we're actually not going to have a season. And I don't remember that exact moment either. I don't know if you remember kind of how that went down.
Yeah, there was an email that went out that was generally pretty wishy-washy. But one thing that it did say was spring sports are unlikely. And, the school had been, like I said, wishy-washy to that point, and them taking any sort of stance, even the stance of unlikely, I think signaled a red flag. And almost immediately following that, coach met with us, I think the day after, and basically said, I know that said unlikely, but based on the conversations that I've had with athletic directors and other coaches and, people in charge of the actual athletics in the NESCAC, it's unlikely, barring, I think he said, barring everybody getting a vaccine. It's pretty unlikely that we play. And like we said before, our coach is the most optimistic guy in the world. He was telling me, I think,
when you know that it's not good. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I think in the meeting before, he was telling me that it was 50-50. He saw it as 50-50. We play, we don't play. And I remember sitting, it was a one-on-one meeting with him. And in my head, I'm like, Coach, I don't think it's 50-50. I think the odds are not in our favor. I think at that point I was thinking, it's 80-20 that we don't play. But he was adamant 50-50. And I think too, that he was going to do everything in his power, like he did in the spring, to make sure that we played in some capacity. But at a certain point, I think it became out of his control, and the powers that pull the strings, far above the coaching, decided to go the direction. And, the reality is, I think, and you tell me what you think about this, I think the school has been, as much as we hate what they've done and, what the situation has kind of thrust upon us, the school's been right at every point of the way. They were right when they sent us home. I think it's up for debate in terms of the fall. A lot of schools, a lot of NESCACs brought people back and, had relative success. But the Bowdoin's been taking the cautious route. And, to this point, it appears that they've played their cards correctly. I mean, I don't know how you interpret what they've done.
Yeah. So something that I know we've been talking about a lot, as we've been talking during the spring is looking at like Division I sports and how they have just kind of, pushed ahead and are having their seasons. I know I was listening to I was listening to a Bill Simmons podcast today on my drive home, and Barack Obama was on the interview. I'd give it a listen if you haven't listened to it already, but it was really good. And so one thing they were talking about was kind of how these sports leagues are kind of moving forward and how different leagues are doing different things. So like the NBA did the bubble in the summer, and MLB did what they did. The NFL kind of seems like they're throwing caution to the wind and just barreling through and doing whatever. But it's really these Division I college sports, specifically college football, and now we see college basketball, and kind of how they're continuing to have their seasons. It's almost like a weird thing to watch these games, knowing that, I mean, professional sports, yes, they're playing, but at least they are professionals. They're getting paid, and they have this opportunity to opt out. And it's, it's interesting watching these kids who are our own age and are, being able to play, but it's almost like the forces that be at a Division I school are obviously different than the forces that be at a Division III school, which has been one of the most interesting things to watch during the last 9 months as far as sports are concerned.
Well, I think you're right. I think the higher level you go, from Division III up until professional, the more money becomes involved. Obviously our baseball games aren't making the school any money. They're costing the school money, actually.
Yeah.
It's, we're a net negative in terms of the pure financials of it. But, let's talk Big Ten football. That's probably billions of dollars. I don't know the exact amount. And, we get into the professional leagues, that's absolutely billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to get into the jobs that those seasons create, the TV networks, the revenue that they bring in, the people they employ. These are big time industries, and kind of shrinking as you go down, smaller at the Division I level and then subsequently smaller 2 and 3. But I think when they're having that conversation, it's very different. That's how do we make this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Because it needs to happen, versus I think the conversation at the Division III, and particularly at the NESCAC level, has been, what's the best course of action to keep everybody safe and play this absolutely correctly? Because where an NFL team can have a couple positive cases and, they're, like you said, they're going to barrel through, and whatever happens. They'll put a guy on the COVID reserve list, and, we'll see you next week. I think
it's like that Ravens Steelers game the other week when half the team on the Ravens was out.
It was absurd. Or like the Broncos, they lost their quarterback.
Yeah, they had to have like a college wide receiver playing quarterback.
Yeah, because their quarterback coach brought COVID into the facility and obviously got all the quarterbacks sick. Oh man, come on, donkeys. That's horrible. But no, I think it's a different conversation when you get to the NESCAC level, and I think in their eyes, having athletes get corona would be a loss, and I don't think that's something that they're willing to sign off on, any sort of possibility that they would put us in a position to potentially contract COVID.
And it's definitely going to be a interesting thing to watch moving forward. Obviously we won't be a part of it, but kind of seeing how these NESCAC schools and Bowdoin more specifically, kind of how do you recruit kids to this school, seeing as we just didn't have a season? We obviously weren't able to create the relationship with this year's first years that we normally would. They were on campus and we weren't. So I haven't really had the opportunity to talk to them, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of what they decide to do and kind of what goes into their decision, whether it be taking this next semester off, or I think I've heard a potential of a lot of kids wanting to transfer because the NESCAC didn't have a season. I don't know if that's going to be true or whatnot, but that's definitely going to be something interesting to watch, moving forward with these Division III schools, specifically Bowdoin. Kind of how do you retain these kids, and then how do you get that next batch of recruits, seeing as we didn't have a season this year, and even going into the recruiting too. Kind of, I know our coach wasn't able to recruit the same way that he wanted to. This past year for the incoming class and moving forward, because even down to the high school level, a lot of these kids didn't have their spring season. So how do you showcase to a coach, whether it be Bowdoin or any other school, how do you show that you should be recruited to play in college. A lot of interesting things like that. Obviously there's been a lot of effects of COVID, and this is just another one of them that kind of is more, something that revolves around our circle, and something I'll definitely be interested to see, in the years moving forward.
Yeah, sorry if you can hear that noise in the background. I've never heard guys more excited about the Rutgers football game. I think that's
I wonder why.
in the other room. I think there may or may not be a little money on the line there.
Yeah.
No, but back to what you were saying. No, I mean, looking at it, you're completely right. I agree. And Bowdoin may lose talent and may lose guys to other schools that are more likely to play. And where I think Bowdoin has the advantage versus, other Division II, Division III schools is that they have a pretty strong academic offering. And, as much as I hate to talk about, how prestigious Bowdoin is as a Bowdoin student, we're extremely fortunate. We go to a, extremely prestigious school and a very selective school. And I think Bowdoin at least has that card to play. Okay, you may not play for a season or two, or, whatever's going to happen, but we're still Bowdoin College. They always talk about the offer of the college. They're still going to push that offer of the college. And I think that's their strength relative to maybe less selective Division III schools, where it's like they pretty much have to play because they have to attract these guys somehow. Where, Bowdoin's not so much interchangeable. And so I think Bowdoin's going to hammer that. They're going to really, I think they're going to end up with a lot of guys that are focused on the academics. They're here at Bowdoin because, they want to continue playing, but, their main focus is being at Bowdoin and, being fortunate enough to attend this college. And I think that's something they're going to have to draw pretty heavily on if the next few years are going to be any kind of success. And, we'll see what happens. But I think a lot of the NESCACs are going to be in the same boat because I think they're all going to do the same thing in terms of playing versus not playing. But I want to ask, so you said we don't have relationships with any of the freshmen, which I agree.
Yeah.
We have,
yeah.
I ran into two of them at the field and, we obviously kept our distance and, chatted briefly, basically, expressed my sympathy for them having to be on campus at this point. But how much do you think gets lost? All those traditions we were talking about, 5 o'clock dinner, our spot in the library, like how much of that gets lost because there's this, who knows how long, but at least now it's a year and change that we haven't been on campus. And, that really comes from the older guys. The older guys set the tone for the 5 o'clock dinners, our corner in the library, our, all the kind of movements that we have on campus as a team. How much of that do you think is going to stay once school resumes normally?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've really been thinking about, and honestly been pretty worried about, kind of what is the culture of our team. Not even just culture, but kind of like those baked in traditions that we have that signify us as being the baseball team, or kind of like give you a connection to someone who wasn't even at school when we were there. Someone who was maybe 6 or 7 years older than us, who was the senior when our seniors were freshmen, and kind of how you have this team culture is going to continue. As this year was kind of lost. The people who are going to carry it forward, or are going to have to carry it forward, are the guys a year and 2 years younger than us. But they also, didn't have, I guess, the full experience that we did, and they were also broken up by this. The first years last year, who are sophomores now, I mean, they had the entire fall with us, but we only played 4 games together. We didn't have a full series. We didn't have, a NESCAC series. So there's a lot of things that I do think are going to be lost with the team. What it's going to be, I don't know exactly, but I do think there is going to be a substantial change to the way that the Bowdoin baseball team operates on campus, and not just from like going to speed training and practicing. Coach will manage all of that stuff, and I'm sure he'll keep it pretty much the same, still having the 9 o'clock practices in Farley that go until 11. But it's mostly kind of the stuff that you do as a team and that we do off the field, getting together on weekends and, hanging out together in the library or, during the week. So I am a little nervous about that. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And I guess I have faith that coach is going to recruit guys that will be able to at least make their own traditions. And I think the team will be fine, but I do think it will be different. Like we may come back on campus in a couple of years and be, like you guys aren't going to dinner at 5:00 and sitting at the table that we always sit at and, studying in that corner of the library that we always do. But I'm sure they'll create their own things, but I do hope that they're able to kind of keep the tight knit closeness, the family culture that we like to say that we have on the team. I hope that they're able to keep that together, and that can manifest in different ways. It doesn't have to be doing exactly what we did.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I lost you for a second in the middle there, obviously with Zoom.
Hey, we're doing it over Zoom, right?
Right.
Everyone's we're familiar with Zoom by now, huh?
Pretty nice capstone on our semester to have to do this project over Zoom. But no, I mean, I think we're attached to our traditions, and we think that the traditions that we've kind of undertaken for 3 years are the way. But the reality is we're not going to be there, and these guys are going to form their own things. They're going to get attached to their own things, and I think at this point it's really out of our hands. It's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see how it all happens, and how, I guess, feels like an old guy thing to say, but how the next
I know I feel old talking
really takes the reins. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows? And so I guess we're pushing time here. I think we knew we were going to talk for a minute, but I guess
you got a Rutgers football game to lock into after this, right?
Holy cow! I got a final to study for. I don't have time for Rutgers football. Yeah. But give me your thoughts on the future. What happens next semester? What happens the semester after that? When do we get to, or when does, I guess, Bowdoin get to resume Bowdoin life as we knew it? Does it ever?
Yeah, so obviously next semester is going to be different. They've already come out with their plans. The fall, I'm really interested thinking about how fall of 2021 is going to look on Bowdoin College campuses. Are there going to be, these different changes where, like, is mask wearing going to be, something that's maybe not mandatory but encouraged? Are students going to be more worried about infectious diseases? Are us as a nation going to be more worried about infectious diseases moving forward? But I guess, when does Bowdoin get back to normal, the way that we understand it, and kind of the experience we had for 2.5 years? I would hope, maybe, I would say not 2021, but going into fall 2022. I think there's going to be like a little carryover next year where things are still a little weird, and it's a little more kind of hesitant. But I guess maybe in that fall 2022 we're able to kind of maybe not forget, but move forward and get back to business as usual. But it's going to be weird too, because a lot of these people who experienced Bowdoin are now going to be graduated. That's going to be us and the grade below us. So then it's going to be not just from a baseball perspective, but just from a campus culture and the way the campus operates. Is it going to be different? And I think it is going to be. And I don't know how that's going to look, but I think it's going to look different in some ways. I don't know exactly how, or if you have any ideas maybe how it's going to be different, or if you think it's going to go back to normal next fall.
I mean, I like I said, I'm the eternal pessimist now. That's what I've become.
Yeah.
And I don't think things are going to be normal in the fall. I think the vaccine schedule, I don't think that kids our age are going to get it until maybe the fall. They might end up with it in the fall, and Bowdoin can go ahead and mandate it. And, maybe they get to bring a group or everyone back onto campus. But I think at that point, you're right. I think there's going to be rules, and things are going to be different than the Bowdoin that you and I knew. But, I think that's an interesting point you brought up. I think it is going to be a reset because, especially if it carries into the juniors, the grade below us graduating. the sophomores now have really only experienced Bowdoin for a semester. It's going to be almost a complete reset of, just the general goings on at Bowdoin from the weekdays to the weekends. I think, things will completely change. And I don't know. I think that they have a chance to reset, and it'll be interesting to come back in, 5-10 years and see what exactly has changed and how that it's really going to come down to the sophomores, how the sophomores kind of reshaped Bowdoin based on, the little Bowdoin taste that they had, but they're not going to be conditioned to do any one set of things.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like the first thing that came to mind when you were talking is just like social houses. Cause I think that's a big part of Bowdoin. So, first years come in and they see how social houses operate, and then they apply, and then they want to be in those social houses as sophomores. But now, who are going to be those sophomores moving into the social houses, and because they're not going to have the experience of seeing how social houses operate, the year prior. So do they maybe start their own sorts of traditions, and kind of just the similar thing to us on the baseball team? And I think that's something that can be replicated, throughout campus in a lot of the different campus groups and, different sports teams and different clubs and all these different activities going on throughout campus. So I think there could be some sort of a little reinvention on Bowdoin's campus. And, it could be for the better. It could be that they come up with new ideas that are better, but, it could be worse too, or it could be the same and just different. I don't know. It is going to be an interesting thing to see.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it all comes down to whose interpretation of better. We might think it's worse, but they might think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And unfortunately, our opinion matters increasingly little on the Bowdoin campus. But no, it'll be interesting to come back for a couple alumni weekends and see what became of the college we knew.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll leave it there. I'll let you get to the Rutgers game, or get to that final you got to study for. I know I got to get some stuff done, but great to talk to you today. And, we'll see what happens in the spring here. Hopefully, we're pessimists now, but maybe we'll turn into optimists. We'll see.
If something happens to turn me into an optimist, I would welcome it. I would absolutely welcome it.
Me too.
No, this was fun. We don't really sit down. I know you've had a little bit of podcast experience, but I've never sat down and done this. But
yeah.
This was good.
I'm the podcast king now, huh?
You've done a couple now. You've got some experience.
Yeah.
No, this was good. I guess the one thing left to do is, start writing.
Yeah. I'm excited.
All right. Well, I'm sure I'll see you in another Zoom window over January break.
I'll see you at some point. Yeah.
All right. See you, Jimmy.
See ya.